Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on World Health Day. My name is Himanshu Saxena, and I'm honored to be part of the webinar titled Don't Let Your Iodine Deficiency Sink Your Health Ship. Before we dive into our discussion, I would like to introduce you to my employer, Texai Research. It is a leading global market research and consulting firm with offices in US, UK, and India that offers market research reports in a number of areas to organizations. Healthcare, chemical, agriculture, automotive, ICT are some of the key verticals in which Texai Research caters to and offers market research and advisory solutions to its customers worldwide. World Health Day is celebrated each year on April 7th and is about raising awareness about important health topics and to encourage individuals to live healthier lifestyle. This year, 2023, World Health Day theme is Health for All. Today, I want to bring to light the importance of iodine and its role in minimizing iodine deficiency disorder. This essential nutrient, that is iodine, helps to provide the body with important vitamin and minerals that are necessary for proper growth and development. Recommended intake for iodine for adults should be around 150 micrograms a year, and its deficiency can lead to a number of illnesses such as goiter, cretinism, thyroid-related diseases, and mental retardation, among others. Government of India in 1962 launched a salt iodization program, also known as National Goiter Control Program, to replace ordinary salt with the iodized salt, particularly in the goiter endemic regions. However, in the year 2005, universal salt iodization was made mandatory in the country. Today, we have with us a panel of experts who will shed light on the importance of iodine and how we can minimize iodine deficiency disorders. Our speakers will discuss the role of iodine in the body, sources of iodine, salt fortification, double salt fortification, and much more. They will share their experiences in implementing iodine related programs in different parts of the country and their key roles in being a part of this massive exercise. Before we begin, I would also like to remind you that we have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. If you have any questions, please submit them using the chat feature and we'll try to answer them as soon as possible. Firstly, joining from our in-house research team is my colleague Shaurya Singh. She is one of the key members of the TechSci family with rich experience in management consulting. She looks after the life science and biopharma division and is an integral part of the healthcare team. Over to you, Shaurya.
Thank you, Manshu. Can you just put my slides? You are what you eat. Ever since our childhood, we have been hearing this from our family, teachers, relatives, friends that to be fit and healthy, you need to eat good food. What we eat plays an important role in promoting overall health and well being. From long term to short term, diet choices have a wide range of effects on overall health and well being. A healthy and balanced diet can reduce the risk of various diseases, enhance mental performances, focus, and help in strengthening the overall immune system. Nutrition plays a pivotal role in maintaining good health. Balanced nutrition is critical for maintaining physical and mental health. Consuming the right proportion of carbohydrates, vitamins, proteins, minerals can provide the body with the energy and nutrition it needs to function well. Regularly eating a variety of nutrient rich foods will help to ensure that all of the body's daily needs are met. Himanshu, can we move to the next slide? So, vitamins and minerals is one of the most common terms that we come across every day. Vitamins and minerals are essential nutrients that our body needs in small amounts to work properly. So, these can be taken from the sources of our diet that we consume. Vitamins and minerals are used for essentially in the different bodily functions such as helping to fight infections, wound healings, making bones strong, and regulating hormones. In a totality, there are about 13 vitamins in our body, and out of which 8 of those comes from vitamin B group. So basically, there are two families of vitamin, that is fat soluble vitamins and water soluble vitamins. Fat soluble vitamins comprises of vitamin B and vitamin C, and water soluble vitamins are vitamin A, D, E, and K. Then there are minerals also which the body requires, minerals such as calcium and iron. There are also trace elements such as iodine, fluorine, which form an integral part of our diet. These can be consumed through different kinds of food items that we need to include in our diet. Can we move to the next slide? So like we were talking about different vitamins and minerals. So vitamins and minerals are critical for overall well-being, and a deficiency of any vitamins in our diet can lead to deficiencies, which can further contribute to various kinds of diseases. For instance, the deficiency of vitamin A can lead to night blindness. Deficiency of iodine can cause different kinds of iodine deficiency disorders such as goiter. Deficiency of vitamin C can cause problems such as scurvy. So let us discuss about iodine. Iodine is regarded as a forgotten, but yes, it is an very essential element and very essential nutrient that forms an integral part of our daily life. Its roles and benefits are essential for overall functioning of human body. Iodine plays an important role in the development and functioning of thyroid glands and affect many cells and body systems. A lack of iodine can lead to impaired growth and development, difficulty in thinking, and a weakened immune system. Iodine is an essential element to the human body because it helps children develop cognitively, improves the function of the thyroid, and helps immune cells fight against potential threats. A lack of iodine can inhibit physical and mental growth and make it important to ensure that children and adults get enough of iodine in their diet. So today, since we have the iodine man of India, Dr. Chandrakant Pandavji, so now I would not take much time of yours and I would forward it to Sir to explain more about iodine and iodine deficiencies.
Okay. So, thank you, Shaurya, for that. Our next guest needs no introduction. It is my honor for Textile Research to introduce to you the recipient of Padma Shri 2021, WHO Public Health Champion Award in 2017, Mother Teresa Memorial Award in 2016, and many more awards. He is the founding member of Iodine Global Network and a consultant to World Health Organization and UNICEF on iodine deficiency disorders in over 60 countries for more than 2 decades. He's presently member of National Council on Indian Nutrition Challenges under Poshan Abhiyan. He taught India about the effects and the consequences of the iodine deficiency that later led to the formation of Universal Iodization Program in the country. Due to his instrumental role in the iodization of salt in India, he's conferred with the title of Iodine Man of India. Once again, he is Dr. Chandrakant Sambhaji Pandav, famously known as the Iodine Man of India. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Very good morning to all of you. आप सबको नमस्कार. Yesterday was 5th April, 4th April was Mahavir Jayanti. I just wanted to remind you that India is very proud to be a secular country. In all my public interactions, whether they are live or offline or online, I do three things. First is I express my gratitude to the defense forces, those who are taking after our borders. We sleep at night in peace because they are awake 24 hours a day. तो हमारे जो भारतीय सेना है उनको मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ. I want to express my gratitude. My second gratitude is to the Corona warriors, COVID-19 warriors, the physicians, the nurses, the pharmacists, the ambulance drivers, the security people, the 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 van drivers. I just want to express my gratitude to them. I want to share with you so far in the COVID-19 pandemic, 2000 doctors have sacrificed their life. 2000 डॉक्टर ने अपनी जिंदगी इस काम के लिए अपनी जिंदगी दे दी. तो हमारा फर्ज बनता है, it is our duty to take care of their families. I understand that the government has some plan, but as responsible social citizens, they must do something for their families. 2000 doctors. When I was studying in class 5, 6, 7 in Pune, in National Model School, Aga Khan Palace, we had a poem called Charge of the Light Brigade. Into the Valley of Death rode the 600. So these doctors knew that with this continued sustained exposure to patients with COVID-19, they are likely to die. They sacrificed their life. I would like to express my gratitude. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a social responsibility to take care of them. My third gratitude, आज जिंदगी में मैंने जो कुछ भी हासिल किया, whatever I learned in this life, whatever knowledge, experience, wisdom I got, this is because of my guru. The first guru in life is your parents, your mother and your father. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Whatever I have achieved in my life, as I said, is because of one word, Guru. In India, there are 6 types of Guru. The last type is Guru, who dispels darkness. Asato ma sadgame tamso ma jyotirgame. तो गुरुजन को मैं नमस्कार करता हूँ. Now coming to the story of iodine, I worked in this area since 1978, 78 plus 22, as 45 continuous years. I've been working on iodine in addition to other areas as well. But iodine has been my main focus. The story of iodine in India starts way back in 1948. My mentor, Professor V. Ramalinga Swamy, who was the director of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences from 1969 to 79. Then he moved to Director General of Indian Council of Medical Research, National Professor, as advisor to UNICEF, James P. Grant. I was very fortunate to have him as mentor. There are 2 kinds of teachers in your life, those who are mentors and those who are tormentors. So I was lucky to have a mentor. So he got a fellowship to go to Oxford University way back in 1948. There he was called for an Dr. my esteemed colleague Shashikaran. Robert Mackensen was the first director of the Nutrition Research Laboratory, which was then located in Kurnool. So 1948, over a glass of wine, Dr. Robert Mackensen said, Dr. Ramalinga Swamy, I could not find the exact cause of goiter. Please take this story forward when you return. On coming back to India, Dr. Ramalinga Swamy worked on the problem of what is the cause of goiter, which was very rampant, especially in the Chitral, Gilgit areas and sub-Himalayan belt. There he began his studies and reported in the World Health Organization Bulletin 1951 that it is the iodine deficiency which is the most important cause of goiter. Dr. Ramalinga Swamy basically spent his time in Department of Pathology. But he wanted to understand after identifying iodine deficiency as the most important cause of goiter, he carried out a very historic experiment called the Kangra Valley experiment. Kangra Valley is in Himachal Pradesh. That time it was undivided Punjab. So in 1954 and 56, it took 2 years to set up the experiment. And can you believe at that time, 1 lakh, 100,000 school students were enrolled, 100,000, 1 lakh, 100,000 students were enrolled. What it did is he divided the area in Kangra Valley into three parts. Part 1 received salt fortified with potassium iodide. Central part was control areas. Part 3 received salt with potassium iodide. I repeat, part 1 with potassium iodide. Central middle value, which was the control area, did not receive any iodine, the normal salt, and area 3 received potassium iodide. They did the baseline survey in all the three areas, and the goiter prevalence was 42% in all the three areas. After 5 years of experimentation, the goiter prevalence in iodide and iodate area reduced by 50%. It came to 19% in both the areas. Control area, it remained at 42%. So 50% drop in the 5 years continuous supply, either with potassium iodate or with potassium iodide. The next 5 years, the prevalence came to less than 10%. So this was the most successful experiment. I must share with you that the area that was control areas, the local MLA reported to Dr. Ramalinga Swamy that please also include us in the study. So that was the kind of awareness they had. So the results of this Kangra Valley experiment were very, very successful. And based on these results, it was in 1962 the government established the National Goiter Control Program. Those days, smallpox, tuberculosis, cholera, malaria were very major public health threats. So National Goiter Control Program, that time the understanding was it causes goiter, which is a painless swelling in from the neck. I've seen such big goiters, pumpkin size. Itna bada dekha hai maine. It did not get the much attention, as I mentioned, because of smallpox, cholera, tuberculosis, and malaria. They were causing more deaths. But we did our studies way back in 1980s. My topic for my dissertation at the All India Institute while I was doing MD was endemic goiter in Delhi. That was the first time I introduced the concept of extra-Himalayan belt of iodine deficiency disorders. Subsequently, with ICMR, we established that most of the country was affected by iodine deficiency disorders. In addition, we did program for screening for neonatal hypothyroidism. And neonatal hypothyroidism is the single most important preventable cause of mental retardation. We did studies on autism, deaf mutism, and psychometric assessment in northeastern UP, northern Bihar, Delhi, and Kerala. And based on that finding, in 1983, those days Mrs. Indira Gandhi used to revise health programs every 6 years, 6 months. So these findings were reported to her. Madam asked Dr. Pandav, what should I do? I said, Madam, the whole country is affected with iodine deficiency disorders. So please introduce universal salt iodization, USI. And that's how the story moved forward. The tragedy is it had some speed. But in December 2000, the government of India decided to lift the compulsory salt iodization. But then next 5 years, I protested. I went from house to house. Jan Andolan kiya agle 5 saal ke liye. It was reinstated in 2005, back to base. And I want to share with you today, according to the latest figures we have, 93% of the population consumes iodine with some salt, 93%, and 78% consumes adequately iodized salt. It is 15 parts per million. in the salt that is being given to population. आज हम दुनिया के we are leaders, विश्व गुरु है. Swami Vivekananda said in 1897, after 50 years, my country will get freedom. 1897 plus 50, 1947, we got freedom at midnight. Swamiji further said, in the 21st century, Mera Bharat Vishwa Guru Banega. And I want to share with great humility as well as Abhiman, right, that today we are the world leaders. Swamiji, जिसने में काम ने मुझे मौका मिला इस एरिया में आज हम दुनिया के लीडर है विश्व गुरु है. Most important thing is we have to sustain it because the history has proven that the moment the attention is diverted, the prevalence falls down. So sustainability is very important. We still have 22% population that must get adequately iodized salt. The global target is get more than 90%. So I'm very proud, sir, my esteemed colleagues, my reviewers, that आज मेरा देश विश्व गुरु है इस कार्यक्रम में iodine deficiency disorders. So thank you so much. Take science for this opportunity. Himanshu and Shaurya and my esteemed colleagues Shikaran, and of course my most respected viewers for giving this opportunity to share this public health success story in India, which is an example for the whole world. सारी दुनिया में इससे सीखने के लायक है. They have a lot to learn from our public health success story. So, Himanshu, Shaurya, thank you so much for this opportunity given to me by Tech Science. Shukriya.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Thank you, sir, very much. Another distinguished speaker of the event is Dr. Sisikaran Goindala. He has over 120 publications and chapters in over 3 books. He is the former director of National Institute of Nutrition, ICMR, Hyderabad. He has carried out research in areas of nutrition, food safety, toxicology for more than 30 years now. He has developed guidelines for probiotics in food, guidelines for GM food testing, guidelines for biosimilar drugs, and recommended dietary allowances and dietary guidelines. He is also the chairman of the Scientific Advisory Committee of Protein Foods and Nutrition Development Association of India. He taught the world about the double fortification of salt and government mandated in and post forward to 2023. Each and every company operating in salt industry is using it. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Himanshu and Shaurya Singh. And it's indeed an honor to share the platform with a person like Dr. Chandrakant Pandit. I think from Dr. Chandrakant Pandit's life story, we realize that our limited life in that short period, we should leave this world after doing something which improves the quality of the life of the people of our country. It may be small, it may be big. I think every one of you young people realize that is not acquiring wealth or property is the goal of life, but is when we leave, we make it a better place than what it was when we were born. So Chandrakant is a good example of that. And now moving on to this another major public health problem in our country, which is still not been solved, is anemia. Anemia is due to the lack of iron in our diets, and as a result of which the oxygen carrying pigment hemoglobin is less, and anemia leads to a whole lot of disorders. So somewhere in the year 1970s, the National Institute of Nutrition was when they found that there was a very successful iodization program. We thought, why not piggyback on the same salt, the iron as another additional element, and it's also a major public health problem. So the whole thing was almost 2 to 3 decades of research in this institute. Please, can I have next slide, sir? Now, if you remember the Dandi March, the Salt Satyagraha of Mahatma Gandhi, which actually led to our freedom. Now, the same salt, as you have heard what Dr. Pandava said, has led to be a fortified salt, and we think that this will lead to freedom from micronutrient deficiency in our country. Next slide. Now, micronutrient malnutrition, that is deficiency of micronutrients, which are vitamins and minerals, can be solved by three different ways. Number one is supplementation. It seems over and above what we get from our diet, we can add on to it, and that is called a supplementation. Or we could do what is called a dietary diversification. Make sure everybody eats a healthy, balanced, well nourished, nutritious diet. But this is a little utopian thought, and we still have a lot of people in our country who do not have access to the food. And even among those among us who have the access to food, we don't seem to be eating the right kind of food. So the only alternative to give micronutrients as more like a short-term measure is to fortify or add these micronutrients to the normal food which we eat. That is called a staple food fortification. You can fortify either cereals like wheat and rice or more like salt. Next slide, please. Now, food fortification is not a new idea. It has been done right from the year 1918 in Canada, where they fortified oils and fat and milk with vitamin D, because vitamin D deficiency was a problem in that country because of decreased sunlight exposure, and people were most of the time inside their homes. And then you can see all across the globe, fortification has been a very successful program. And then in India, the first fortification program which has a success was what Dr. Pandav mentioned just now, is iodine fortification. Next, please. Now, what are the various vehicles? As I told you, you could fortify a number of things. You could fortify wheat flour and rice, and the fortificants like iron, folic acid, and B12 have been used and are still in the market. We could fortify oil and milk with vitamin A and D2, and oil are now compulsorily fortified with vitamin A and D, and salt with iodine, and now with iron. The advantage of salt is anybody will use salt. If you fortify milk, a third of our population don't drink milk, so you cannot reach them. If you fortify wheat flour, then the South Indian will not use it. If you fortify rice, then people in the north may not use because they are wheat eaters. So salt, however, is used by anybody and everybody. Another advantage of salt is you cannot eat too much salt. So therefore, there's no question of risk of eating too much of the nutrient, because salt intake is only limited. So it was factored around an average intake of, let's say, around 10 grams of salt per day, and based on which the iodine fortification and our iron fortification was also done. But we now face a small problem, which can of course be circumvented, is that internationally we want people to consume less salt. So we are likely to recommend, instead of 10 grams, you're coming down to 5 grams. But therefore, accordingly, we'll have, if that becomes a reality, then the level of fortificants have to be increased in the salt. Next, please. Now, anemia is the biggest problem, especially in all these BRICS nations. Iron deficiency anemia in India is so rampant that among children below 3 years, almost 80% have anemia. In women, it is around 55%, and in men, it's below 24%. Next, please. Now, this leads to several problems. Both physical and cognitive losses cost the developing countries about 4.5% loss in the GDP per annum because of anemia, which is around 1.18% of GDP in India is because of anemia. And we may do any number of industrial upgradations and all sorts of facilitation, but you still won't be improve the GDP by that factor, simply because people are not getting enough iron. So this I'm referring to a publication which came from Niti Aayog. Next, please. Now, what are the strategies? Of course, is we from NIN we promoted a whole lot of food-based approach, because we have a lot of people in this country who say that don't add chemicals to our food. So we want to get it only through food. So this is a kind of a good intention, but it's more activism than realism. So, for example, you see here poha or dalia, etc. All of them produce iron, give iron, but in small quantities, and not everybody is able to have access to these kind of food. We also give folifer tablets through a public health program to the risk group, that is, women who are pregnant and women who are feeding their babies. And then the third option, of course, is iron fortified salt. Next, please. So we can't possibly have two kinds of salt, one iodine fortified, another iron fortified. How will people use it? Practically, it doesn't work out, and therefore it has to be the same salt with both. So reducing iron deficiency, of course, as I already mentioned, there are several benefits. You get safer pregnancy, you get babies born with normal birth weight, people's work capacity improves, and therefore greater productivity and therefore greater economic growth. So the World Bank report once said that you, with just increasing the hemoglobin of a population by just 1 gram, your GDP can go up several fold. Next, please. Now, double fortified salt is edible common salt to which very small amounts of iodine and iron are added. So, DFS is nothing but an iron fortified iodized salt, because iodized salt is the legal salt in our country. And it is to be used just as how iodized salt is used. Next, please. Now, the composition, of course, is that the salt has to be, even though I say edible common salt, it has to have certain purity characteristics. As a crude salt will not be able to keep the iron and the iodine for a sufficiently long period of shelf life, and therefore the salt purity levels are mentioned as here. It's also recommended by the Food Safety Authority. We also found that when you add iron to an iodized salt, iron being a highly reactive element and a pro-oxidant, throws away the iodine. So it looked as though that if we add iron, we will be derailing the iodized salt program. And therefore, there has to be a method by which when you add iron, iodine doesn't go out. So we added a stabilizer called sodium hexametaphosphate, which is a food additive, accepted, safe, but still we did a lot of safety studies. And to that, we added ferrous sulfate, 7H2O, and potassium iodide. Potassium iodide can also be used. Dr. Pandit already mentioned the Kangra Valley study where they used both. And the method of preparing it is simple dry mixing. A ribbon blender can mix the salt. Next, please. So the double fortified salt actually provides 10 milligrams of iron and 150 micrograms of iodine. The recommended dietary intake of iodine is, at the latest one, is 140 to 220 micrograms per is the RDA, of which 150 micrograms, which should be sufficient for almost everybody. Iron requirement ranges between 19 to 29 milligrams, because for men it is less, for women it is more, for pregnant it is more. So the entire range exists. I'm not going through the detail, but the RDA generally is 10 milligrams. Okay, next please. And remember, this is prophylactics. We are not treating anemia, we are actually preventing anemia from happening. Next please. Now, there is also some concern. People say that if we fortify iron or iodine and then people get the same thing from different sources, is it likely to lead to iron overload? There are a group of scientists who feel so. But if you look at the table here, you have what is called the RDA for women. Let us take the lowermost row. The number of milligrams per day is 29 milligrams. Okay. And what is the tolerable upper limit? A tolerable upper limit is of anything is when a nutrient, highest amount of a particular nutrient which one can take all through life without having any adverse effect, is what is called as the tolerable upper limit. Tolerable upper limit is not a limit at which any harm occurs. It is a limit which highest you can go and still there will be no problem. So the tolerable upper limit here is for iron for women is 45 milligrams per day. And what is the RDA we are giving is 29. So how much is coming through salt? 10 milligrams. So the chances of excess intake will never arise. Okay. So we'll go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Now, therefore, what is important, of course, is that whenever we do any public health program, there are always some people which say that what if it causes harm in the population? So we go by what is called as a risk-benefit analysis. So you have first of all identify what is the hazard by giving that. And if you can't identify a hazard, that means there is no risk involved. The next is how do you manage that hazard? and what is the quantum of benefit to the population. If 99.5% of the country's population benefit, there is a 0.5% of the people who may have a risk. The benefit to risk analysis shows that the majority of the population will benefit by that. Well, we are different, and there could be a small population, like what is now talked about, in case there are people who have abnormal hemoglobin disorder. Will this excess iron cause harm? It might, but then we have to identify and manage, and we cannot let the remaining 99% of the population stay anemic just to manage that 0.5% of the pop. So that is the kind of benefit risk analysis we always have to do when we do a public health program. Next, please. So this, we did a various studies which are all summarized in this book, and this is accessible from the NIN website. Next, please. So we did the stability. As I told you, if you add iron, iodine may go away. So we did a stability study by looking how long does the iodine stay. Iron won't go anywhere. How long does the iodine stay when you keep it in a shelf? In different humidity, different temperature condition, rural, urban, tribal, everywhere. And we found that up to 12 months, the iodine remains stable. So the shelf life are roughly around 1 year with the quality of the salt, which I mentioned earlier. Next, please. Then question of bioavailability. How much of the iron which is present in the salt will actually get into the body? So we did those studies and we compared with the control, iron absorption percentage. Normally, the amount of iron gets absorbed from the diet is around 3.9%. Whereas the double fortified salt, the iron absorption was around 6%. So there's a slightly better absorption, but not to the extent of thinking that it might cause any iron toxicity. Next, please. So then safety, of course, we did a whole lot of safety studies on animals, and also when we did the human studies, and found there absolutely no adverse effect, because the reason is, one is because of iron, another is also because we added a stabilizer. Next, please. So then we found that, did it really change the hemoglobin? This is, you see that the red is all the double fortified salt, the blue ones is plain iodized salt, and you find that the hemoglobin improved by almost 2 grams in the younger children. And if you see that on the extreme right, the bars are going negatively. That means the hemoglobin actually came down. That is in children in the growing phase where their iron intakes are high. With just plain iodized salt, their hemoglobin came down by 0.5 gram. Whereas when you give the iron fortified iodized salt, it came down only by 0.05 grams. Next, please. The next slide will actually show you about the same thing among girls. And here you find that on the extreme right, you see this, the drop, the red bar going down. That means almost the hemoglobin came down by 2.3 grams in these adolescent girls because of they started having menstruation. That's the time they need iron. But if you give the double fortified salt, the fall is still there, but you see it is almost half than in a just plain iodized salt, showing that the iron is actually able to replace part of what is lost during menstruation. Next, please. So then, in coming to acceptability, we use the salt in a whole range of food preparations and studied and found, does it change the color, does it study the taste, etc. All this was done, and it was found to be acceptable. So the iodized salt acceptability score was between 4 and 4.9. The double fortified salt's acceptability was between 4.15, which is essentially the same. Next. So with an average consumption of 10 grams salt per day, the additional cost, how much is going to cost? At that time, which was 20 years ago, it was costing an additional 1 paise more per head per day. Okay, so maybe now it is around 10 to 15 paise. I think I have our friend Mr. Raj Kamal from the Tata Salt who will give exact costing of the whole thing. Next, please. Next slide. So the cost per kg of an iodized salt versus double fortified salt. What's the difference? I've taken the Tata salt as an example because I have the price. This thing shows that the difference between non-iron fortified plain iodized salt versus double fortified salt, or what is called the Tata Plus, is an additional ₹5 per kilogram. Next, please. So the various channels by which this double fortified salt is available is through the ICDS program, the midday meal program is available on the public distribution system and also available in the open market for people to buy. Next slide, please. So these are the various departments which were involved in this. On the left are all the government departments, and on the right, the support which was given to this project by UNICEF, Food Program, PATH, etc., etc. All that is how it was possible for us to bring this to the public system. Next, please. So, food fortification is the key to bringing forward to a healthier and happier India and the future. So, the future generation will grow with better mental and better physical growth. Next, please. So, fortification is one of the best investment, if you ask me. If many of you are business people and you know what a business, how much do I invest, how much do I make a profit? So in that, fortification is the one where you have the least investment, but a huge amount of human capital will come out of that. So this was actually this fortification of rice program was released by our honorable Prime Minister on the last Independence Day. So let us not miss this opportunity. As Dr. Pandit said, it's a simple solutions for major problems. And then let us accept these simple solutions and supported by the government programs, we'll be able to manage both goiter as well as anemia. Next, please. So thank you very much, and thank you for the patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much. Moving on to our next guest for the webinar, Namak ho to Tata ho, Tata Namak. I grew up listening to this. Tata Salt is synonym with salt in India. It was launched in 1983 as the first national branded salt of India. Today, as the market leader in the salt category and one of the country's leading food brands, the journey of Tata Salt is a testament to the consumers' enduring trust in the brand. Joining our today's webinar is Raj Kamal Gilra, who is currently the Director of Marketing, Core Salt at Tata Consumer Products, and he will be shedding light on the journey of Tata Salt throughout the years. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Himanshu. Just let me know if I am audible.
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
And also just let me know if the screen is visible on my side. Is it?
Not yet.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. First of all, very good afternoon to everyone, and it is my deep pleasure to be kind of listening to Dr. Pandav and Dr. Shashikaran. And sir, thank you very much for sharing so much of history and science behind the way iodization has taken place in the country. It has been a very humble honor of Tata Group and Tata Salt to really take this journey forward to the masses in the country. So I will quickly share, I think, the journey which we have seen in Tata Salt, and I will take up where Dr. Pandav left, which was 1983, when the whole iodization was suggested by Dr. Pandav to Madam Indira Gandhi, and how did it go to masses? So I think a very when we look at the snapshot of this journey of iodization, when we look at, and Dr. Pandav said that goiter was a very significant issue in the country pre 1983, and that is when there was a high level discussion at I think the policymakers end, where the iodization was made necessary, compulsory for the country. And as the story goes, when Dr. Pandav suggested that to the PM, she kind of spoke to to Mr. J.R.D. Tata, and that can we take up this for the masses in the country. And this is when what you see in the bottom is the place where Tata Salt gets produced, a very humble town called Mithapur. Mitha is the namak, basically in Gujarati. And this is Mithapur where Tata Salt gets produced. And this task was handed over to Mr. Tata back then to kind of ensure that salt gets enough iodization so that it can percolate down to masses in the country. Dr. Shashikaran referred to that salt is something which everybody consumes. Nobody can eat it more, nobody can eat it less, right? And if you see it, this is in a way the cheapest item that comes to our kitchen, right? So I will broadly talk about how the whole hard work of Dr. Shashikar and Dr. Pandav and the science fraternity came into masses. How people got salt and how the goiter, which used to be a big problem in the country, came up to almost to a level where 93% cases have been reduced. Still 7% remains, and we see that as an opportunity for us to really improve it in the country. I will refer to some quick data there, but. Taking forward, I think it was our humble privilege to really lead that development to take to India to every mass of Bharat and India together. That iodized salt reaches everyone. In and truly, when you look at Desh Ka Namak, as Tata Salt is humbly called, because ultimately, as we all know, the group does not, the group survives for the purpose of society. That is the famous quote for by Mr. Yadi Tata, that the whole purpose of reason of being there in the business is for the society. And I think as Desh Ka Namak, Tata Salt has been kind of consistently making effort to be responsible to really do that job for the nation. When we see Tata Salt from 1983 to 2015, 40 years. So this is the year when we are celebrating 40th year of Tata Salt. It is now a very, in a way, very well mature young individual in a way, right? So 40 years of the brand, we have been consistent in the quality that is delivered to this country, and as it is called, I think this salt, which is the salt of the nation, delivers consistent quality with the right amount of iodine. I am emphasizing the word here, right amount of iodine, because Dr. Shashikaran referred to the quantity that you cannot consume more iodine and you cannot consume less iodine, right? And we have been true to the right amount of iodine in the product. This is a vacuum evaporated technology. Practically, the thing that makes it different, it's pristine white. I'm sure all of us on this webinar use Tata Salt in our households, homes. This is pristine white. You will see this is a snow color. And why it is different is because the whole technology of making this salt is different. This salt is produced in machinery. This is not a solar salt which is dried under the sun. And then this is mixed, every single particle of salt is mixed with the right amount of potassium iodate. And that's why रग रग में आयोडीन, रग रग के अंदर, और हर कण में शुद्धता, हर कण में सच्चाई has been the promise of Tata Salt, and what it delivers is देश का नमक, क्योंकि देश की सेहत. So the promise has been for this brand, देश का नमक देश की सेहत, and we see the whole development from on this part. What the major, I think, challenge once the scientist fraternity proven the need of iodine and the requirement of iodine in our bodies was to make consumer aware, right? Because ultimately it goes to every single person and not everybody is equally educated. So what we took up as an effort for this nation was to make iodine knowledge go down the masses. You see some pictures wherein our teams have gone down the retailers, consumers, taking iodine testing kits, testing every bit of iodine in Tata Salt and the other salts, right? Just to tell that iodine is important, and iodine, this is, let's say, what it tells you in this picture is there is a solution that is called methyl bromide MBR kit, and that kit is basically drops are taken on the salt, and the salt color changes, which is a reflection of having a right amount of iodine. So for a normal person like you and me, how do we understand the whole science behind potassium iodate? We don't, right? So in that case, it was made very simple, that people went and tested the product, and this is the right color, right violet color which should come in salt, to know that it has equal right amount of iodine. If the color is less, then it tells you that it is less amount of iodine, right? And you require for your body a certain amount of, so basically 15 to 30 ppm is what is necessary in our body to have in case of salt. Now, not everybody can, again, India is very big, right? You can't reach to everybody with this kit, and hence what Tata Salt took over was practically a lot of advertisement, which is very educational messaging. The country requires telling that the right amount of iodine is important, and unfortunately even today we see, because there is obviously cost involved, like Dr. Shashikaran said, not all salts carry right amount of iodine or consistency in the iodine. So in a very layman language, what Tata Salt took over was a lot of effort on education of consumers, so that people understand iodine. And thankfully, as we speak today, I think majority of Indian mass understand that salt has iodine. Right? They may not understand the ppm levels of iodine, but iodine is necessary. It is important for kids, our children's mental health development, right? And this is a subject of our kids, our future, and for them iodine is very necessary. So I'll just play this one ad to tell you, a very simplistic language in which Tata Salt has conveyed the message to the country, and there are many more such messages we keep coming to tell India that iodine is very necessary. I'll just play this, and this is telling it in a very humorous way. However, a very deep message that you are leaving to the population in the country. I'll play it. Himanshu, just tell me that it is audible to everyone. Himanshu, was it audible?
No, sir, it is not audible.
I'll just play it again. Thank you.
Still, we cannot hear you.
Hi, were you able to kind of? I'm sure we were able to see the whole creative.
Yes, sir.
So in a very humorous way, it is just showing that when you test it, there is a right color of iodine which is there, and iodine makes the kid sharper, and hence it is very necessary. So the entire work that Dr. Pandav, Dr. Shashikaran has took over in terms of making India realize the need of iodine, it is just getting translated in the simpler language, how we really speak in a general language. So that's, I think, in a way, the effort which has been consistently by Tata Salt, and we kind of remain committed to this cause, because I think this is something as being the biggest brand of salt in the country, and which reaches everyone practically. I think this is our deeper responsibility, that iodine reaches everyone right in the country. And what I'm showing on my screen is that it's today's scenario, right? Like Dr. Pandav said, it is still, to a large extent, I think goiter cases are low. However, we see that still there are states, right? This is 2022 report. There are still cases, and there are still states where we see number of cases per lakh population in women for the thyroid or goiter disorders are there. And I think this is task for all of us to keep spreading the awareness about uses of iodized salt, whichever brand we practically use, but the right amount of iodine that it delivers, so that whatever is left in the country for goiter or thyroid disorders, that we are able to curb. in this case. Lastly, just quickly covering, which is what Dr. Shashikaran touched upon, was DFS, double fortified salt. We stay committed, and I think a lot of time when NIN and Tata Chemicals slash Tata Consumers have worked together to really deliver a Tata Salt Plus, wherein we can deliver iron as a fortified item to the country. And this is our DFS, which we launched when NIN formulation was developed. And again, just playing back, this is a product which we have again launched, I think, couple of months back in an improved formulation, and we stay, I think, focused to deliver Desh Ki Sehat always with the deficiencies which salt carries. So I'll just play this ad for Tata Salt DFS. So it says Desh ke rag rag mein iodine, iron plus iodine, and I think this is where we now are. That as Tata Salt, we have launched three different products. One which carries zinc. We understood in case of COVID that zinc is a important micronutrient for developing immunity. So Tata Salt Immuno is our humble effort towards building Desh Ki Sehat. This carries iodine plus zinc. We have recently tested iodine plus vitamin D, because vitamin D deficiency is again a large deficiency in the country. So that's another pilot which we are working on. And lastly, like Dr. Shashikaran mentioned, DFS, which is double fortified salt, iron plus iodine, is something which we have again put up in the market. So my request would be that we stay committed, one, as a brand, as Desh Ka Namak for Desh Ki Sehat, and do test these products and give us the feedback which you receive. And I think for a larger cause, salt remains to be the cheapest thing which everybody can access, and hence I think we will continue serving the major cause that exciting scientist fraternity has already taken up. So with that, I think thank you very much, Dr. Pandav, Dr. Shashikaran, for the kind words that you've said, and Himanshu and Shaurya for giving this opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. Uh, let's. We have received couple of questions for all the speakers today. Let's move to the questions first. Sir, according to you, which is the most common age group that is impacted by the iodine deficiency?
It is the pregnant and lactating women who requires adequate quantity of iodine.
Oh,
That's the most important. The brain development starts from the age of 3 months, and by the age of 3 years, 90% of your brain development is content. 90%. And by the age of 7 years, the complete brain development is there. So the pregnant mothers would be priority number one. Lactating mothers will be priority number two, and their iodine requirement is actually 250 micrograms per person per day. But as Dr. Shashikaran said, even if you give 150 micrograms is sufficient, because there will be other sources of iodine that will supplement it.
sure, sir. Coming back to Sissy Karan, sir. Sir, what is the best source for iodine? Apart from the, now we are doing the fortification of the salt with the iodine. Are there other sources of iodine also?
Yeah, actually, the most of the seafood are rich in iodine. And Chandrakant, would you like to answer that?
Yes, seafoods, but that also the sea fish that eat the seaweeds.
Seaweed, yeah.
The richest source of iodine in nature is seaweeds.
Seaweed.
And within the fish, it is the thyroid gland which is the research source. What happened, very interesting study in Maldives when I was doing a survey in 1996, that Maldivian people, Japanese trawlers were parked in the Maldivian Sea, and they took the tuna fish. But the local population started selling reef fish, which is very rich in iodine. So I noticed that from the year 1973, the goiter and iodine deficiency began to occur in the islands of Maldives. The second thing is that because of the low area that they have in Maldives, they started cutting the head of the fish and throwing it back into the water. So basically, they were throwing the thyroid gland and iodine thing. Very interesting study which I have published. I'll give a reference of this as well.
Sir, do you also think that the excessive consumption of iodine is harmful for health, or are there any studies related to that?
Yes, the total safety is incredible. In Japan, the intake of iodine is 2000 micrograms per person per day. 2000. And the excess iodine body has an inherent mechanism where there is excess iodine, it is excreted in the urine. So we are talking of very, very safe limit when it comes to iodine. Very safe.
Okay, sir. Coming back to Dr. Sisikaran, like you mentioned about the fortification of salt and fortification of food. So, once it is diagnosed, iodine deficiency diseases are diagnosed. What is the treatment line for that?
See, iodine deficiency, diseases in the sense that what was goiter, which Dr. Chandrakant Pandav said, is it has to be treated through surgical means to get rid of the cosmetic part of it. What you can do is prevent. So iodization of salt is not for treatment of iodine deficiency, rather to prevent iodine deficiency and to replace iodine which is missing in the normal diets. Once severe iodine deficiency, severe big goiters develop, then merely giving iodine at that time will not be sufficient. You have to do the clinical study, right? Pandav.
You are right, sir. You're on the right track. But these days, one does not see the goiters that we saw pumpkin size. You don't see them anymore. That has disappeared. If at all, what you see is small nodules. And as you very rightly said, first give iodine containing preparations, thyroxine, L-toxin. If it doesn't disappear, then you have to go for surgery. But that's very, very low population. बहुत कम लोगों में है.
I have a question for Dr. Sesikaran. Like you mentioned that during fortification, we have to take into account that iron can replace iodine. So we need to be very much careful. So what are the considerations that are kept into, what are the things that you keep into consideration while doing the fortification things, specifically to
Yeah.
the salt fortification?
Yeah, when we are formulating the whole salt, when iron was used, different kind of iron chemicals were tried, and we found that FeSO4 7H2 was the best. Different kind of salts were tried, right from the crude salt which comes from the sea to the highly refined salts with those specifications where a minimal amount of other minerals, other contaminants will also be there naturally occurring. All these will contribute to iodine getting out of the salt. So we therefore defined the quality standards of the salt which is required for double fortification. Second, we defined what is the kind of iron salt which is required. And third, we put a stabilizer which prevents the iron from oxidizing the iodine and which is responsible for the iodine to go out, that is sodium hexametaphosphate. And then having added that, which is an approved stabilizer, which is used in other foods also, we still did a prolonged safety study to just make sure that there is a remote possibility of calcium going out of the bone, etc., at high levels SHMP. But we did all that and then found that absolutely safe. And then the stabilized iron was studied for the shelf life. In shelf life studies under various climatic conditions, and also accelerated shelf life studies were done. And then we decided that until 1 year, with the iron also, the iodine still does not get out.
Okay, sir. Sir, there are different variants of salt present in the market. It could be rock salt, it's pink salt. How these salts are better or different than the iodized salt?
There are a large number of preparations that are available in the market of salt. I also see Vipin Bhai question asking about Sendhu Namak. As I mentioned, iodine is very vital for the human development of physical growth, mental growth, metabolism, and maintenance of your body temperature. Four things. So you must have, and as Raj has mentioned, that the best medium is salt. In fact, globally, they have identified multiple vehicles for giving salt. In Russia, they give through vodka. In Iraq, they give it to sugar. In Mexico, through toffees. In Thailand, with different sauces. In China, they give it through water. सारी दुनिया घूम के आए हैं and you come back to the salt only. There's a lot of global experience. So that's number one. The Sendua namak, the pink namak, and the Himalayan namak does not have iodine. And I reported this to the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. So they get this permission through some other means. But actually, they are causing immense harm to the population. While I'm on the screen, Raj, I want to tell you interesting story behind the scene. I made the life of N.D. Tiwari miserable. He was the Minister of Industry and Commerce. Then he called up Darbari Seth. Seth साहब ये ऑल इंडिया इंस्टीट्यूट के डॉक्टर पांडव मेरी जिंदगी के लिए बड़ी तकलीफ कर रहे हैं पार्लियामेंट में बहुत सारे सवाल पूछ रहे हैं So the story behind the screen is N.T. Tiwari called up Darbari Seth sir and requested him कुछ तो करो इनसे मेरे से छुटकारा पाओ That is the story untold Raj behind the screen how Tata was the first country first private sector that made iodine salt. Raj, आपको पता नहीं था ना?
There's one more question, I think, which is part of the question is, according to Ayurveda, iodine salt raised fat in the body. Is it true? There is no such truth. Fat goes up in the body because of higher calorie consumption and not because of iodized salt at all. And this is just an excuse. And I can also imagine Ayurveda literature would have never mentioned this because this iodized salt did not exist thousands of years ago when Ayurveda was there.
It didn't exist. The period of Ayurveda is a part of the four Vedas, Atharvaveda, Samveda, Yajurveda, Rigveda. So part of Atharvaveda, Ayurveda is a part of Atharvaveda. And the period is 7,000 years back, 7,000 saal pehle. Raj, I also want to tell you, please take this seriously. Think of adding magnesium. Magnesium. Recently, we have noticed that there is a magnesium deficiency which is causing strokes. Cerebral stroke. तो राज आपसे विनंती है along with NIN, Dr. Shashikaran के साथ, in addition to adding zinc and vitamin D, please seriously think of adding magnesium as well. I'll talk to you more later.
Sure, sir. Moving on to our next question. What are the measures taken for salt reduction and iodine fortification studies for public health in India?
What's the question? Sorry, can you tell it slowly?
Salt reduction.
Salt reduction and what are the measures taken for salt reduction and iodine?
Measures taken for salt reduction. Yes. In fact, that's a very difficult thing to do. If you see, one of the things which WHO has recommended is that the entire industry, snack food industry or the processed food industry, which adds salt to its product, should reduce at the rate of about half a gram per year, because a drastic reduction in salt in any product will cut the taste out of it. So people will not accept it. The second, of course, is we now recommend the table use of salt should be cut down. And of course, one problem is in India, the table use of salt is not as much as in the Western world. Most of our salt actually goes into the direct cooking. So we do say that you have to reduce the intake of salt from 10 grams to 5 grams, simply because the studies have shown that our blood pressures are probably higher because of a higher salt intake. Yes.
If you're serious about reduction of salt, I want to state here openly and publicly the packaged food industry should should reduce the salt in the packaged food they produce. That's the most important source which can be prevented and reduced. Packaged food products must reduce salt in their products. That is the only way you can move from 10 grams per person per day to WHO recommended 5 grams per person.
Okay, so we have another question for you. This is the last question actually. So can you express your views on why most of the women suffer from iodine deficiency during pregnancy times, or is there a correlation between the two, iodine deficiency and the pregnancy?
What happens in pregnancy, the mother is also taking care of the child.
Right.
And the source of all nutrients, the mother is the primary source. Therefore, the requirement of iodine in pregnant and lactating mother is 250 micrograms per person per day, while normally it's 150 micrograms per person day. Because बच्चों को माँ ही देती है ना, जब वह गोद में होती है, when she is expecting, mother is the only source. Like all nutrients, salt is also the same way.
Actually, the adolescent girls who are the potential mothers should make sure that their micronutrient status is adequate, and so that as and when they conceive, their body has enough of those nutrients and they can continue. So therefore it is to make sure that the girl's nutrition is proper, not only for iodine or iron, for almost all micronutrients. The target actually is the adolescent girls.
Himanshu, sure, yeah, I want to share with you another untold story.
Sure, sir.
I
Why
am
not?
responsible for IDD program in China way back in 1993. I wrote China's national IDD control program.
Yes,
What they
sir.
had done is, at the time of wedding, they gave iodized oil injection as a presentation, as a present from the state. If you give iodized oil, your iodine intake for the next 5 years is more than adequately addressed. सरकार ने चाइना की सरकार ने आयोडाइज्ड ऑयल सरकार की तरफ वो उनको प्रेजेंट कर दिया.
वो चाइना में कर सकते हैं सर.
Sorry.
वो चाइना में कर सकते हैं बोला.
But I just shared with you the untold story because Shaurya specifically told me, Dr. Pandav, please tell us the untold stories. So I have many untold stories of the IDD.
And coming back to you again, Dr. Pandav, you were mentioning about the other story with the Tata Salt and how the journey started with the Tata Salt and the Iodine Man of India.
I told you that I made ND Tiwari's life miserable by asking many questions in the parliament. वो परेशान थे. So he called Darbar. He said, "Sir, कुछ तो कर दीजिएगा. ये Dr. Pandav मेरी जिंदगी हराम कर रहे हैं." So that's how they started. Darbar said, introduced the iodized salt, Tata iodized salt, way back in 1983. And they're making a film on me, the untold story of Iodine Man of India.
Right, sir.
Good.
This
That's
is the
When
one.
the iron, when it comes to double fortified salt, we had the issue of patenting the method and also exclusive rights for making it. We did not do that. In fact, we were questioned by the CAG for not doing that. But what we said was this technology should be available to even the smallest salt manufacturer in the country, in the most remote area, so that the salt can reach the people across this vast country. And therefore, we did not give exclusive rights to anybody.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Uh, as we are coming towards the end of our session, I would like to thank our esteemed guests who shared their valuable insights and perspective about the importance of iodine and its role in preventing iodine deficiency disorders. With strategies such as increasing access to dietary sources of this essential nutrient through salt fortification programs or other food which are rich in iodine, we can effectively reduce the risk associated with deficiencies which are caused by the lack of iodine. We hope that today's webinar has provided useful information and inspired others to work together towards improving global health. And thank you once again to all the guests for joining us today.
From
Yes,
my
sir.
side and Dr. Sasikaran, we want to thank Tech Science for hosting this program on the World Health Day. In fact, the first World Day was celebrated in 1950. आज तक आईडीडी किसी ने नहीं चूज किया, तो यू आर अ वर्ल्ड लीडर इन दिस, गेटिंग आयोडीन माइक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट एज एन इम्पोर्टेंट थिंग ऑन अ वर्ल्ड हेल्थ डे. तो इसलिए आपको धन्यवाद देता हूँ, आपको मुबारक देता हूँ. आंटी, कॉन्ग्रेचुलेशंस.
Yes,
Thank you,
I
sir.
agree
देश
with
का
you, sir.
नमक,
I agree. Absolutely.
Thank you,
देश का
everyone, for
नमक
joining.
है.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manshu and Shaurya, and pleasure, Dr. Pandav, Dr. Shashikaran, to be a part of this.